What do you get when you combine elite level Latin dance training, fearless reinvention, and a mission to raise the next generation of dancers and leaders on the dance floor? You get Kim Lyons.
Hi, Kim. I'm so glad you are here.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here. I'm excited to share. I love this podcast. I think it's such a great, awesome thing to listen to. So I'm happy to be on it.
Oh, thank you. I'm sure our listeners are going to love this. So I'm just going to kick it back to you and say, the floor is yours.
Perfect. There is so many things that have happened when it comes to, the abuse and everything that I survived throughout my childhood. So I had this one thing just keep popping into my head, back into my head over and over as I was trying to think of something else. This one just kept coming back to me. So I recall that I was in the fifth or sixth grade and sitting in on the toilet in the bathroom of my childhood home. And I was sitting there and I had scissors coming towards my face to forcibly cut hair off of like the front of my head and like just to cut it off forcibly. And I knew that like in that moment this person was trying to take away the thing that was making me feel beautiful, my expression, my confidence, right? They were just taking it away forcibly. And I knew I had to kind of make a decision in that moment of whether or not I was just going to sit by and let it happen or if I was going to fight and say no, this is not right. And I chose the latter. And I chose to fight the scissors and the person holding them. And as a fifth or sixth grader, I really wasn't concerned about my safety. I was concerned about, I was scared. It was scissors, you could seriously get hurt. And I threw up my hands. I started fighting. And this grown man, my father, decided that he was going to continue to try shoving those scissors in my face to cut my hair. And, I obviously lost against a grown man because he was not stopping. He was not stopping fighting. So I knew that either I was probably going to get stabbed or hurt, or he was going to get stabbed or hurt because it was not a little fight. It was not. And I was small, but I was very strong. I was very muscular and active when I was younger. So, yeah, that is what kept popping into my mind. And it was just a very crazy experience. And I think about it now and I'm like, oh, before I used to be like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. It's not as traumatic as what other people have been through or whatnot, but it wasn't the first form of abuse. It was just the first physical manifestation of the abuse. So, yeah, and basically the context of that story is, back at that time, I don't know, it was, 2000s, somewhere in the 2000s. And, the style was that like emo phase where you have like the hair in front of your face. And I had nothing going for me. And I got abused and bullied at home. And I had, never had clothes that fit me. And I never had like stuff to make sure my hair looked good. I had very curly hair naturally. So without any product or anything, it just was a mess. And so not only was I getting horribly treated at home, I got horribly treated at school. So, my stepmom and dad would barely even pay for me to get a haircut because they were like, oh, well, you're just going to wear it up anyway. So why are we going to spend money on it? They wouldn't let me be groomed in any kind of way, wouldn't let me have clothes, like I said. So, at one point I braided a tiny section. It was probably like this size right here, braided a section because I had it in my face with my curls down. And they were like, you can't have it in front of your face anymore. Like, if you do it again, we're going to cut it off. Like, we're so tired, like just trying to control me and the way that I looked and the way that I felt that I could express myself. Like, they didn't give me any way to do that. And that was the only control that I had to be able to try and fit in. So I stopped getting bullied, right? And so, I braided it so that I didn't have to have everything slicked back from my face because apparently I couldn't have any hair in front of my face. So that meant that I couldn't wear my hair down. So I had this tiny little braid and I had tucked it behind my ear and we were driving to none other than church. Driving to church and I'm in the back seat looking out the window, and we went over a bump or something, and the braid fell out from behind my ear. Now, I'm telling you, this thing was like maybe a hair bit thicker than floss. It was not crazy. So it fell in front of my face, and I didn't immediately put it back. And my stepmom caught it in the mirror when she was flipping down her mirror to do her lipstick to go to church. And she said, "That's it. When we get home, we're cutting it off." So they spent all day in church just being the perfect little Christians. And then took me home and shoved scissors in my face and forcibly cut my hair this short. Now my hair was very long, and that just a chunk to an inch of length. So then I had to wear, a clip or something to hold it back. And I finally decided, like, I was gonna say something about that, because now there was proof, right? Before there wasn't. All they did, they think Cinderella, shut in a room only to be let out to cook and clean, punished for no reason. And I just was like, this is not right. And I needed to say something, because I didn't want to be stuck in this horrible, abusive life anymore, because it was getting hard to want to live, right? It was getting hard to want to continue. So finally they did something that was physical, and I was able to go into my teacher at the time, my like core teacher, they called it core, and advocate for myself. And then they called CPS, and I got scared, and I didn't say anything because obviously I'm young. I was like, oh, well, I already told one person. I was brave enough to tell one person. They probably said it, so I don't have to say it, right? And I just remember not knowing in the moment what was going on, because I got called to the office out of class and then sat down with this random person, and I had no idea who they were. They were just like, oh, this person's here to just hear about what happened. And I had no idea. So I was like, oh, well, what they told you is all true. And that was it. But they didn't like coax me through it or anything. And so, yeah, I kind of like lost my opportunity there. But then my stepmom and dad like started figuring out that something happened, and I said something, and they took me out of that class. And it's because I was getting A's. I mean, they didn't want me to succeed at all. They took me out because I was getting A's on my class. And so they moved me to another class because I was getting A's. And this is all just like that one moment, that first very defining moment of, I'm going to fight back, right? I'm going to fight back against this behavior, which I had, which is what caused me to get the mistreatment, at one point, right? My stepmom was hitting her very young, like maybe just past one baby, with a spoon because he was crying. And my sister, my brother, and I, that was my stepbrother, my sister, my brother, and I were like, this isn't right. And I was the one that said something about it not being right. So when we were all getting treated poorly, all of a sudden the abuse was just targeted on myself. So, that was probably the first time I stuck up for myself or for someone else being treated poorly. And then this moment was the one where I was like, no, I'm like physically gonna do something about it. But yeah, throughout all of the abuse that's happened in my life, that was kind of like a recurring theme that came up is, I'm tired of getting treated this way and being shut in a room and only being let out to do stuff for the family. And then, like I'd spend 2 hours cooking for them, but I wasn't allowed to eat it. I had to then make myself something else. And I'm growing at this point, so obviously I don't have much meat on my bones. So I was being starved and had clothes that didn't fit. And, just through every single moment that happened, I couldn't not stand up for myself anymore. And that strong, like persistent personality that was like presenting itself. And I was like, oh, this is a thing that's happening. But obviously as I'm young and not understanding, like, why is it that I'm the only one saying something? Why is it that I'm the only one that's brave enough to say this? Why is it that I'm the one that's getting treated poorly? And it's because I was the one that was calling her out. And so it just kept coming. So through all of those moments, through the moments that I was sat at the front door in a sleeping bag to sit and watch kids play and be on display without being allowed to speak, without being allowed to get up and go to the bathroom, just sitting in a sleeping bag in front of the front door where everybody could see my shame for, I'm sure, doing something like not finishing a math problem at 8 p.m., one math problem. It was, presented itself when my ex-husband got to the point where he was physically hurting me and mentally hurting me with his psychiatry degree, where he went in and was able to get into my brain and make me feel small. It went through all of those moments. And it even came up, when I got my diagnosis of this incurable degenerative disease that I know is going to hurt and already has been making it more difficult for me to do my job. But, I finally, at one point, I was so tired and I was like so small and so sad and angry at the world. And I didn't know how to express it after going through all of this and thinking, is this just what my life is going to be? Because it happened with my parents. It happened with my ex-boyfriends. And now I had an ex-husband. 20 years straight of just horrible, relentless abuse. And this just Cinderella story, you sit there and you watch the movie and you're like, oh, well, she got her Prince Charming and she got saved, but that's not reality. That's not reality at all. But my Prince Charming was dance. I had to take a PE credit and I was like, oh gosh, I'm so white, I can't dance. It was like the only thing available and I had to get it done that semester and had to get the PE credit done. And dance was the only thing available. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. And I went in and I ended up really understanding it to the point where I'd get it way faster than everybody else in the class. And then people were asking me for help. And then I got, recognized as being able to pick up and was taught then how to be an instructor and hired on to be an instructor. And then continued into learning my, ballroom stuff. And it gave me this ability. And I'm going to say, especially at the beginning, the ballroom competition gave me this ability because I had these dances that I could express these emotions to their deepest root that you just cannot do with words. And you had the waltz where all of that sadness, all of that just heaviness was able to escape my body, really. From being stuffed down there for so long and being treated horribly for so long for speaking up or for not speaking up, for, you could never be right. And I could just now let it out and entangle. My anger could just be let out. And it was before I learned how to really verbally communicate in the best way what I was feeling, not only to myself, but to other people. And so dance was really the thing that kind of saved me from the brink of wanting to end it, wanting to be done, because all I was to people was how is she going to get me money? How am I going to be able to take my anger out on her? How am I going to be able to make myself feel better from making her feel worse? And that was what my life was. How can I exclude her from family, from everything that she should be included in, from the people who should be protecting her, right? It was just so nice to be able to let that all go and find a safe place, this safe, inclusive, welcoming, free, amazing thing that is so good for not only your mind, but your body. And I was like, man, what better way could I spend my life than to be able to create that for others or give that to others? You never know what people are going through. And I have seen dance save so many people from the brink of leaving this world or being fed up or, unable to talk to an opposite sex, and then being able to be the first person that asks the new women to dance, right? It's just these crazy transformations. And I'm so grateful that I got to be a part of that, So yeah, that's my story, my Cliff Notes version of the story. Right.
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing that you found a place like that. I'm going to get choked up. No child should be treated like that. And I have my own relationship with dance from when I was young, and it was my escape. And I fell in love with it immediately. And I think I was still in middle school. And basically, my cheerleading coach invited me to join. She wanted to start a little dance group. She was a choreographer. And so she got me started, and I did it for years. I ended up going to high school for the arts. I went to NYU for Tisch for dance.
That's so great.
Yeah. And it'll always live in my body, and it's always there. And I found myself in the salsa community in Charleston when I got a divorce. I thought, how do I reclaim, who I am? And so the salsa community, I showed up one night and I was hooked in.
Oh, yeah.
It does get you. And it's such a great community. Like you said, it's so diverse.
So
And welcoming and compassionate. And yeah, it's beautiful just to have people of all ages, all races, all economic statuses, and everybody just
gets along.
dances. Yeah.
It's like you make friends that you would never have crossed paths with before, or just outside of dance. I mean, I have friends that are rocket scientists. I have friends that are lawyers. I have friends that, are servers. I mean, from people from all over. I mean, politicians I have taught, like celebrities I've taught. It's just one of these things where I would met these people without, and then that becomes your tribe as well. That becomes your community and the people that pick you up when you're down, because Lord knows I have been down, and that community has always been the community that has surrounded me with so much love and like, oh, like you're not okay. We're here to support you. When blood family falls short, and the people who are supposed to be there for you are not, right? Significant others, maybe they're not there for you. This community is the one that I'm so happy that I found. And by just absolute chance, it's just wild. I would never danced without that PE credit. Like,
I don't think it was by chance.
Well, yes, I was led to it. It's one of those things.
For sure.
It's like I never knew what I wanted to do with my life when I was going into college. I never knew what I wanted to do. I didn't have a major to start with. I was just trying to get my general education out of the way. And, all I had ever been taught that I was good for was, being a baby machine or cooking and cleaning for people. I was taught that I was incapable of doing anything successful, and that I wasn't pretty and all of that stuff. And so I was like, man, I have no idea what I'm going to do. And that was just put in my lap. And I was like, this is it. Yeah. And gosh, there are so many people who think of that as lesser than, right? So many people who have said things to me like, well, when are you going to quit dance and get a real job? Right? When are you going to quit certifying in dance and go get a degree? Like, sir, ma'am, I have a degree. I have a degree. Yes. You know what I mean? Like, just because it's not the traditional route and I didn't go through a very specific university does not mean that those certifications mean that, and that they aren't real. Because here's the thing is now I'm extremely knowledgeable and I with people, and it allows me to help people not only find dance, but grow in dance as well. And there's still people in my family who do not give it credit or weight. So, and I'm just like, okay, that's all right. It's good for you.
Yeah. My dad, so I lived in LA when I was young, and I grew up in LA. And they were opening an arts high school, Los Angeles County High School for the Arts. They were opening, and it was going to be on a college campus. And it was all over the LA Times. And so my dad would leave that part of the section out for me to read every day because he knew I loved dance. Yeah. And so I really wanted to go to this school, but he sabotaged me the first year.
No.
He hid it. Yes, when they started announcing when the auditions were, he stopped leaving the paper out for me. And I didn't really realize that, what was going on.
You were younger, right?
Until later. Yeah. And I was in 9th grade.
Yeah. When we're that age, we don't
Yeah, I was in ninth grade when I didn't get to audition. And then, so I made sure the next year I was in charge of figuring out when the audition was.
Really?
And then when I wanted to go to college for dance, my dad was like, "You're going to be a lawyer." And I was like, and no.
I would hate that life.
I think I would actually been really good at it. I probably would have enjoyed it too. I've actually thought about going and getting my law degree even this late. I'm like, maybe I could. Yeah. But yeah, he didn't want me to do that. And I remember he insisted I applied for college. And back in the day, it was so different getting into college than it is now. I remember my daughter going through the process, and I was like, this is nothing like what we went through. And it was not as difficult. Like, I think colleges, back when my daughter was applying, there were years that people weren't getting into anything they applied for because there was such a big batch of kids going into college.
Yeah.
But I applied to NYU and NYU only. And he didn't really realize that. He did buy my ticket to fly to San Francisco. I had to fly to San Francisco to audition. I went by myself. And then when my acceptance letter came, he said, "That's great and all, but you got to wait to hear from the other colleges." And I was like,
What?
"I only applied to this college." I had one plan, and that is it. There was no plan B. Yeah, I've always been drawn to it. And it's one of the best things you can do for your mental health.
Oh my
right?
gosh.
And sometimes it's like, I'm tired, I've had a long day, but I also know if I just go dance for an hour, I'm going to feel so much better. And so sometimes I'm just like in and out. Sometimes I'm there all night, but it just depends because I'm like, this will help me sleep. It's going to help me feel better about this crazy day I just had. And yeah, it never lets you down.
Yeah.
It's always
I mean,
something.
definitely. There's
Yeah.
times where, I'm exhausted after working so much. I mean, this is my only job, right? It's the dance,
Right,
it's my only
right.
job. And being able to be such a leader in the growth of the dance community here in Charleston has been
Mhm.
absolutely wonderful. But there are definitely weeks where I don't have a day off. And I wake up and I'm like, man, I just want to sit on the couch and do nothing. But when I get there and I start teaching or I start the social, whatever it is, time flies. It flies. I'm like, oh, I'm only going to go for an hour. I won't stay till the end. And then, of course, I'm there until the end, like every time.
I've done that before. Only an hour. And then I'm like, oh, I did that with Rita recently.
Yeah.
When I was in Charleston, we were going to our pub and I was like, I'm just going for an hour. And as soon as I had my first dance, I was like, forget that. I'm here. all
Here, we're
night."
doing it. Yes, exactly.
Yes.
It's such a drug. Like, it is such a drug. I always tell people when they
Yeah.
first come in, I'm like, well, now you're going to be addicted, right? Or the first time they go to a Congress, I'm
Yeah.
like, well, get ready for all your money to go to Congress.
I know. Yenny and I plan one every year. We're already like, what are we doing in 2026?
So many. There's so many good ones. It has been a dream falling into this community. I've built up a few communities, helped build up a few communities. And this one, I was so lucky. You guys were so hungry to learn and grow and you wanted more. And I was like, yes, this is amazing. And even the other instructors here are like, thank God you're here because you have the knowledge that they want and we don't have it. So that doesn't always happen, when you come into a new community as a teacher, especially a qualified teacher. You can either have people who have that reaction or you can have people who are against you, which also happens quite often.
You also didn't come in hot, right? You didn't come in, I'm this expert and I'm going to do all these things, right? You just showed up and you kept showing up. And then when we lost our sort of main anchor point, when he was sent off to serve his duties, and thank God we have people who do that, but he disappeared, and that sort of anchoring night, Tuesday nights, disappeared, and everybody was, what are we going to do now? And then you were like, I'm here. And everybody was like, thank God.
Well, it's nice. It's like one of those things where when you come into a new community, the key to building it is not you, it's the community. And I think that's one of the things that as a teacher, as somebody that is approaching dance in the way that I am from where I am. And, people have always asked me, oh, if you could change your past, would you do it? And, my answer is always no, I wouldn't, because I wouldn't be who I am today. I don't think I would approach people, relationships, dance, community. I wouldn't approach them the same way.
Nice.
Like, oh, I'm gonna be okay. I'm gonna be okay, because it has been a struggle. It has been a struggle to find my place in the world and have it be connected to someone else, if that makes sense. Like
It does make
yeah. And so this is, I just remember throwing my first Peacock dance social, my first social that I started back in June or July of this year, 2025 year, and just seeing 140 people in that room and the joy, and that being the first thing that I did and having it be so wildly successful. It's just, that was my moment. I remember just being like I'm trying not to get emotional about it, because it is so happy. It is so awesome. I'm so thankful. It's the coolest thing to feel that support from people, especially after years, God, so long, my whole life of not having that support at all. Sorry.
No, don't apologize.
At all from anybody, and especially the people that should have been giving it to me. And, it is kind of like a nice little big, like, haha, you told me I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
But look at what I have had the opportunity to pour into and to help create. And
I'm so glad, and I'm so happy for you. And I think you also made some really great points. And I love that you recognize that you wouldn't be who you are without what you went through. Nobody should have to go through that, but it does form us, right? And it does make us the warriors that we become, right? And the ones that advocate for other people, or create safe spaces like the dance room. I feel that deeply, because I agree with it. Like I got a ton of stories, but they don't define me, but they are the reason that I am resilient, and they are the reason that I continue to move in the direction that I feel called. And I think that's an important, just, you have to continue to anchor in. And the other thing is, you talked about, it's the first thing you've done separate from someone else. And I think that is so important for us as women, is that we have our identity outside of our relationships with other people, whether it's a partner or a spouse or anything. We need to have our own little space that's ours.
Yeah.
And so cultivating that and learning to live in that space, and from that space that somebody can walk next to you, but they don't have to be a part of
everything,
your success. Yeah.
You made a good point of, the things that have happened in our lives not defining us, but adding to who we are. I mean, it's so easy to let it define you, especially if it's something massive, like, a diagnosis, which we have both been through. Like, it's just a life-changing diagnosis where it's going to affect you as you age into the future, and that there is no escape from it, right? We can very easily let that define us, very, very easily. And there's a lot of people who do, or people who have been through traumatic events who let it define them, and that's what they're known for. But choosing to not let that happen and be known for you and who you are versus what happened to you, I think it's a really good point.
Yeah. And I think the other part is, nobody really knows. And this is the part I really hope people begin to understand at some point in their life, is none of us are guaranteed time, right? We don't know when our time on this earth is up. But when you get a diagnosis like that, and you're like, there's this highlighted thing that, like, this could be the thing that takes me young or takes me early, you don't have to subscribe to that. You get to choose. You still get to choose how you live your life every day, and stop waiting for someday. Someday never comes. Today is the only day you have.
I think the fear of someday. I mean, I did it. Gosh, I did
Yeah.
it before I decided to take a step
Yeah.
out, with my first class or my first social by myself, where I wasn't getting hired by a studio and it was all on me. I pushed and pushed and pushed it back for the fear of failure, of fear of someday, right? That, oh, someday, because right now I'm incapable is basically what it's saying is I'm incapable today, but you're not. You are deciding that today's not the day. You got to decide, don't live in fear of something, accomplish it, that you can now cultivate it, grow it, right? Yeah.
Yes. Fear is that little demon that you have to invite in and have a little cup of tea with and say, okay, come on, tell me what you
Yep.
got. And it'll tell you whatever. You're not capable, or you've never finished anything, or whatever that thing says
Oh
to
boy.
you. And then I always just advocate for myself. I'm like, okay, I get why you say that, because there have been things I've started in the past that I didn't complete because I wasn't passionate about them, because as I stepped into them, I realized I didn't want to do all that work.
Mhm.
When you're passionate about something, you're willing to do whatever it takes, right? So it's like I said no to those things,
Mhm.
right? It wasn't about not finishing them. It was realizing I don't want to do that. And by the way, I have finished all of these
Right.
things. And then they shut up. Or somebody told me recently, fear is an inch deep and a mile wide.
Oh yeah.
So dive in, right? There's really nothing there. You just blow it and it's like smoke. It just disappears. Like it doesn't really have a hold on you if you don't let
Right.
it.
Right. Exactly. And it's
Yeah.
hard not to let
Yeah.
it. I mean, fear
Yeah.
can run us. Man,
Yeah.
it has run me for a
Yeah.
lot of minutes.
I did it with this podcast.
Yeah.
I had said I was going to do a podcast. And then I finally went out and I bought the equipment I knew I needed. And I'm a kid at Christmas who used to open my presents when my parents went home. I'd slice the tape. My cousin taught me how to do
Dan.
this.
Oh, me?
But pull them out and then, oh my God, and then stuff them back in or retape them. Nobody ever knew.
Yeah.
I'm the kid that like hates surprises. But here's the thing, like my microphone's there, all the pieces that I needed, and they just sat on my desk. I was living in the studio behind my house, and so it happened to be my bedroom, my living room, my kitchen. It was all there. So I'd wake up in the morning and I'd look at those boxes, and I just would always leave them there, which is so unlike me. I usually rip them open when I get them home from wherever and retry on all the clothes that I just bought, that kind of thing. And finally one day I was like, what is going on? Like, why aren't you doing this? And it was fear. And I was like, oh, it's fear? Okay, you can just sit down in the back seat. We're going. And I got out of bed that morning and I was like, tore everything open and was like, okay, now I got to figure out how it works.
Yeah.
But it literally, I think it took me like 2 or 3 months to even just open the stuff and start moving it, because I was like, I woke up, I think that morning I was like, who the hell do you think you are starting a podcast? And then I was like, oh, that's when I recognized it was fear. Oh, I see you. Now I see you. Now I know what's going on. Yeah. I'm like, I just want to do it. So I'm going to do it.
Yes. I feel like it has that moment with fear. Either they have that moment or they never do anything. And I think it's really important for us as women, especially where we have had so many society and partners and, jobs and pay and government, right? Being told that we can't, right? This is how, and only this is how you are allowed to live and be. And so I think a lot of times as women, it's harder for us to kind of get past that fear, that little voice of like, oh, maybe they're right, because it's coming from so many different directions.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it's awesome that you've been able to like push past that and start this and on a subject that is just so important, because not a lot of us have the ability to tell our stories or the confidence to, right? A safe space to. I know that for me, this is the first time that I've ever publicly talked about what happened as a child, and for fear of letting it define me, for letting people think that is who I am, right? But I feel like now I'm at this place where now I have somebody who is extremely easy to talk to and makes it very safe to come out and be honest about where we came from and the fact that we can be proud for overcoming that fear, whether it be, starting a dance business on my own or starting a podcast on something that is usual, So
Was it just dance that sort of was the thing that helped you move through the healing? Were there other things that you did? Like what else have you done to work all that out of your system?
that's a wonderful
and
question. Dance is definitely the thing that started my process of understanding the feelings that I felt. I was previously married to a doctor, right? So I helped him study through medical school and some of his residency, and he was going into psychiatry residency. So he spent a little bit more time studying those things. And I always tell people you can use these things for good or you can use them for evil. And he was one of those people who used it for evil when it came to me. But in helping him study, right? And as he was going through these rotations, even though he was a monster and turned into this monster, I will credit him to helping me learn the tools to not only understand how to communicate my feelings to other people, but to communicate them to myself. Because one of the things that I would always do when it came to any kind of confrontation is I would go to this very disassociated place. It is something that happens very common in children who are abused, whether it be mentally, physically, sexually, emotionally, whatever abuse form that is. We go to what we call a safe place, what we create into our minds, where we can escape into our minds and not necessarily be there. And it completely severs our emotions from our logical brain, body, everything. Like you are just emotionally, you are not there. And so I think learning about and understanding that was the biggest thing that helped me. And it took a lot of work because I would have to think about that dissociation and the fact that I was falling into it and kind of try to logically keep myself from doing that and falling into it. I go a little bit longer in a disagreement every time, a little bit longer before I dissociated. And so learning about all of those things and then narcissism and how it presents itself and stuff and seeing, that not everything that is said outwardly is true or real. But yeah, I think that the biggest thing that helped me was the concept of anger as an umbrella emotion. And it stems from either being sad, hurt, or fearful, or a combination of those three. And so whenever I would feel this boiling anger, and I always explain it as like a pot boiling over, right? It's like boiling, and then it gets to the point where it's boiling over. Before it boiled over, I had to very consciously be like, okay, stop. Why? Why am I angry? Why am I angry? Am I sad, hurt, or fearful? And I would always start with one. Well, I'm sad. Okay. Well, why are you sad? Well, I'm sad because I feel very unwanted in this moment, right? And how else does that make me feel? It also makes me feel hurt, right? And so why does it make me feel hurt? Oh, well, because I feel like my significant other should be the person who is standing by my side and fighting as a teammate, right? And it makes me sad and hurt that he doesn't want to do that. And he wants to more make me feel bad about myself than do it, right? So understanding that inwardly helped me to really grow to be able to then communicate that outwardly in an I feel statement instead of going into arguments and being like, well, you this and you that and da da, right? So really saying statements like, I feel that in this moment when this was said, it made me feel really hurt because X, Y, and Z. So it's really taking responsibility of your emotions and, communicating that because the word you just brings out, it is an attack word and it makes everybody's defenses go up. So not only did dance help me express my emotions in a very raw and deep way, it being paired with the understanding of myself and my own emotions helped me really grow past letting anger run my life, because it did. It did for a long time. I look back at who I was at 20 years old, and I am not proud of how that person handled things, right?
Mhm.
I'm not proud, and I was not perfect, but I will say that if I had not been with that person, I don't think I would be as developed within my communication style and
Mhm.
understanding of now myself and other people's emotions. Because when you go and you do that work, you can see, like, you work really hard
Yeah.
on that. You can see where other people are coming when that anger hits and they're reacting to a situation. You're like, okay, where's
Mhm.
it stemming from? And you can see, like, when they
Yeah.
talk about it, you can see very clearly what it's stemming from. And so it
Yeah.
helps really just diffuse
Yeah.
and help people feel safe, right? Their
Yeah.
anger is, it's a safe power emotion, and to be able to define it
Yeah.
through something that's more real, I think
Yeah.
is really, really great. So that was
Yeah, that is a good one. I recognize that anger was my siren to when I was overgiving.
mm,
I would start to get irritated by something, and then I'm like, "Ooh!" So I started when I realized that anger showed up that way. Was that my cue for that? I was like, "Okay, so what are you gonna do? I'm gonna take care of myself because clearly I need to put myself first in this moment
yes,
because I want to stay home and lay on the couch because I'm very tired and I don't want to drive an hour to meet my friend for dinner." And it is a gift when you can recognize it and then you can pivot because you're like, "Oh, got it. Know what it's telling me." And the other thing I want to say is you need to forgive that 20-year-old because she was just doing the best she could.
yes,
She didn't have these tools and she was still angry and she had every right to be angry given the way you grew up. And I know more of your story than you shared because we're on a time limit here, but yeah, you went through a lot, right? And it takes a long time to recover from that. And you got to love that little girl and that 20-year-old and forgive her,
yes, yes. And that
you
is
know?
definitely something that, like, when it replays in my mind late at night and in bed, and brain won't shut off, one of those things that
Yeah.
I can't remember where I heard it, but I mean, just literally saying out loud, like, I forgive myself. I forgive myself, putting it on you
Yeah.
and not
Yeah.
other people, right? And there's times where I
Yeah.
feel shame about it, but there's also, when I feel that shame, I can be like, I do forgive myself for
Yeah.
living in that anger, because, like you said, I didn't
Mhm.
have the tools, I'm the same person that I am now, and
Right. And that's the point, right? You grew from that.
exactly. And
Yeah.
to be able
Yeah.
to use that to then be able to create open and kind and welcoming spaces for people who are in those, angry moments, or people who are,
Mhm.
in happy moments, or people who just got engaged, or people who just got broken up with. I mean, like, we get
Yeah.
everybody coming and being able to be that person that people feel safe to come to talk about
Mhm.
things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I could have never been that person
Yeah.
if I didn't do that work. And it's hard work.
Here you are.
Here we are.
Here you are. You are here. Okay, I have one last question before we wrap, and that is if you could give our listeners one piece of advice or two, what would you want to leave them with?
I know this one's going to sound pretty cliche, but really, really just never giving up when it gets hard. There are going to be so many things that life throws at you that it's going to be hard, and you're going to see it as this
Mhm.
massive mountain, and like, how am I ever going to do that? Or this staircase that just there's no end. And the answer really is just one step at a time, one step at a time, and keep
Mhm.
going. And every once in a while, you're going to have to take a step or two back. And that's okay, because it's still progress, right? So really just
Yeah.
keep persevering, because I mean, for me, if I hadn't, gosh, I don't know where I would be. And then the
Yeah.
other piece of advice is, there was this quote I heard once, and I think it's actually why I got this tattoo here. Why I designed this tattoo arrow that says warrior.
Right.
And the quote was, an arrow can only be shot forward by pulling it back. So when you see adversity and you see obstacles, they are there for your own good. They are there to make you grow and push you to be a better person and get you outside of your little comfort zone, because comfort is the enemy of growth. And we thrive as human beings when we are growing and changing and molding ourselves. We are happier. We have a goal, right? So when things seem like they are getting really hairy, just remember that you're probably getting ready to be shot forth into something that is just amazing.
Yeah. I love that. I say when you're in the darkness or you're struggling, just remember this too will change.
Yeah.
That's the good news and the bad news. Because when you're really flying high and life's going really good, you're like, shit, this is going to change.
Yeah.
But when you're in the dark, it's this anchor. You're on the dark side. You're struggling. You don't know how you're going to climb the mountain or move the mountain. It is just little baby steps, and remembering that it will change. It will change because change is guaranteed.
And like every single time I've ever thought, oh, my life is ending, I've ended up in a better place and ended up right where I needed to be in that moment. I've ended up better than I was before. I've ended up happier, like
That's because it's happening for you. It's not happening to you. That's another thing I say a lot on this podcast.
that, pulling the arrow back to shoot it forward. I mean, it is happening for you. I know in the moment it feels awful. And even when I hit this obstacle, because I know I will, I already am, it's one of those things where you just got to remind yourself. You got to remind yourself that it sucks. I'm going to feel bad. I do feel bad in my obstacle, but I know that it's going to push me better.
So. Yeah. I love that arrow quote metaphor. That's beautiful.
It's great. Yeah. It was one of those things that kind of, when that quote hit, I was in a very bad, dark place. And that was one of those things where I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm choosing to keep doing this one more day. Yeah.
Nice. Send me that quote so I can put in the show notes. And I'm going to have all of her contact information so you can get a hold of her and follow her. And I know she teaches at congresses, so she'll probably put that on her website and events page, I would imagine. And so you'll be able to find Kim Lyons. Yeah. She's the best. And miss dancing with you when I'm in LA, for sure. I know. But I think I'm going dancing tonight. That's on the docket for today. But thank you so much. I'm so grateful you came on here to chat and tell your story. It's an important story.
Thank you so much for, like I said, for giving me the opportunity. It's really very freeing to talk about it. Like I said, this is the first time that it's been that I will be talking about it and making it very public. So like, thank you for the opportunity to do that.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate
you.
Have a beautiful day.
You too.